Hi, so there have been many times when I've seen people saying that they love the British accent, but often people seem to think that we all say words like cheerio all the time. In this video, I'll be able to dispel this myth and give you a wide view of the range of accents and dialects in Britain and why there is no such thing as a singular British accent. So, on our journey around Britain, I'll start with what people are usually referring to when they talk about the British accent. That's the accent that's mostly found in southern England and in the home counties, a standardised version of received pronunciation. Although this is the stereotypical accent, the linguist Peter Trudgill estimated in 1974 that only 3% of people in Britain were RP speakers, so it's not as common as we might think. There are two versions of received pronunciation: RP, a very clipped accent that the Queen uses, and another one which some linguists call RP2 or Standard English, that you'll probably hear from a BBC newsreader. It's a more modern version of RP. One feature of this accent is the long vowels, so bath, pass, father, instead of bath, pass, and father. It's also non-rhotic, which means that R is not sounded unless it's immediately followed by a vowel. As well as this, it has something which is rather interestingly called yod dropping, so words are tune, new, and resume, and there's no chance that the speaker will pronounce them tune, new, or resume. However, there are many other accents and dialects on our little island. In London, we'll find RP, but you'll also find London accents, as well as Cockney rhyming slang in some places. Not all places use rhyming slang, and it's mostly present in the East End, but it's arguably one of the most interesting varieties of British English. Some of the most commonly heard terms are dog and bone, meaning phone, apple and pears, meaning stairs, and mince pies, meaning eyes. Sometimes the last part of the rhyme is omitted in a process called hemitalia, leading to rhyming slang's history as a secret language. So we get dog, apples, and minces, which to an outsider are completely unrelatable to their meaning. We're not sure about the origins of rhyming slang, but evidence suggests that it developed as early as 1840 as a cryptolect, a form of code used to cause confusion amongst outsiders and reinforce solidarity amongst speakers. Around this part of the UK, we'll also find Kentish and Sussex, Essex and Estuary English dialects. Now to the bottom left-hand corner of our island in the southwest. This area has one of the most historic dialects in Britain, and some people say that it's the closest to Old English. This is also due to the fact that it's a very rural region, and in rural regions you get very slow language change. In fact, many aspects of West Country English reflect the English of a bygone era, with words such as hark, meaning to listen. One of the main features of West Country English is the rhoticity, meaning the prominence of an R sound, so kind of like a pirate. They also have an A sound in words such as bath, path, grass, as opposed to the R sound that you hear in RP. Like in other regions, there are many alternatives within the dialect. For example, many people in Bristol put this sound, an O, on the end of words ending in A, such as cinema and idea, so that they sound something a bit more like cinema and ideal. So what is pronounced as idea in Exeter may be ideal in Bristol. Another thing, which is rare but more common in older speakers, is the use of cadent instead of can't and how best instead of how are you, which is visibly similar to German. Most people think of the Wurzels or Hagrid as being prime examples of the West Country dialect, and I have to say that in some cases they're correct. However, because of this, many people think it's kind of a silly accent. If you listen closely to my accent, you'll notice that I have many of the features I've just mentioned as I'm from Somerset, which is obviously the best part of Britain, but let's move on. The East Anglian dialect is often quite difficult to tell apart from the West Country dialects. They share many of the same features. This is a more rural area as well, so like the West Country, it's maintained many features that call back to the English of an older time period. In this area, one of the most common characteristics, as well as rhoticity, is replacing the E sound with what sounds a bit more like A, so feet may sound subtly more like fate. There is an absolute plethora of accents and dialects in the north of England, each one with its own terminology and features. One of the main things you'll notice about northern accents and dialects is that they mostly haven't undergone what linguists like to call the foot-strut split, where both words have the vowel sound that's in foot, so words like foot and strut rhyme, as well as put and put. I say mostly because there is an incredibly wide range of dialects up north, including Mancunian, Geordie and Scouse. The Liverpool or Scouse accent, in fact, has its roots in Irish, as Liverpool was originally one of the main trading ports between England and Ireland, whereas the Yorkshire accent owes many of its features to a historical Scandinavian influence. The East Midlands also has places with Scandinavian influence. For example, the East Midlands dialect word skrait, meaning cry, has links to no related word in English, but can be traced to the Norwegian word skrikke, which has the same meaning. In some parts of this region, you can hear the word self replaced with sen, which is in fact from Middle English. There is an anomaly also in this region in the town of Corby, where the accent is often comparable to Glaswegian due to the number of Scottish steelworkers that migrated to the town in the 20th century. The most common dialects in the West Midlands are from Birmingham and the Black Country, Although these dialects are completely separate, one of the most typical features of them is O being pronounced more like ow. As well as this, they haven't undergone the foot strut split, just like in the northern dialects. The majority of speakers from this region use a short a rather than a long r, so pass, bath, grass. Now you move to Scotland, which has a whole bunch of dialects of its own. In Scotland there are distinct languages: Scottish Gaelic, which is historically spoken in most of the Highlands and Hebrides, and Scots, which is mainly spoken in the Lowlands. It's actually quite a contentious issue as to whether Scots is a dialect or a language in itself, and as there are many different varieties of it, I'm going to devote a separate video to this topic. The standardised variety of English in Scotland is called Scottish Standard English, or SSE, and this is what is mainly taught in schools. It seems that around Britain, one of the main aspects that makes a dialect or accent individual is often either the presence or lack of rhoticity. This is also visible in Scottish, where an R is often pronounced as an alveolar flap, which is kind of the sound an American speaker would make in the middle of the word butter. An interesting thing about this accent is how the word petal, when pronounced with a standard American accent, sounds identical to the Scottish English pronunciation of the word pearl. This is a really varied set of dialects that actually have a lot of outside influences. For example, when listening to the dialect of the Shetland Islands, right in the north and closer to Oslo than London, you can often pinpoint the Nordic influences in the pronunciation. You can see a great example of this in a video that I'll link to in the description. I realise that the title of this video is referring to a British accent, and it's important to remember that English isn't the only language spoken in Britain. Along with Cornish in Cornwall and Scottish languages previously mentioned, Welsh is in fact the first language for many people in Wales. Recently it's had a revival amongst young people being taught in schools. But regarding Welsh English, its varieties include Valleys, Swansea, North Welsh, Cardiff, and lots of others. One of the most typical or stereotypical features of Welsh English, particularly in South Wales, is the pronunciation of here, ear, and year as exactly the same, something along the lines of year. So, in answer to the question of what the British accent is, there are many answers, and many more than I could fit into this video. The accent that many people associate with the British accent is RP, but it's important to note that British accents tend to exist on a spectrum, so a West Country speaker from Cornwall is likely to have a different idiolect, that's a personal way of speaking, to someone from Bath. Of course, there are lots of others I've left out, and this is just dipping your toe into the sea of British accents, and if you can stand any more terrible metaphors like that, leave me a message in the comments about what dialects you think I should talk about next, and I'll cover them in a later video. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.